Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Dylan, for that. I first really want to thank Vasuki, Kim, Mehmet, and everyone else that contributed to giving me this opportunity today. And of course, to my family and friends who bore with me and supported me during this roller coaster of a summer. My name is Dariely, and I'm a junior at Gallatin studying social justice and human rights through activism and civic engagement on the pre-law track with a minor in social and public policy. It's a mouthful and I'm working on it. And before I get into talking about what I did this summer, I find it fitting to speak a little bit about my background as it heavily influenced my choice to work where I did this summer. So I was born and raised in the South Bronx with my 4 siblings, 2 Dominican parents, one of whom is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. And as an Afro-Latina coming from a high poverty, low opportunity neighborhood in the South Bronx, I envision myself as an agent of change working to solve the underlying causes of such injustices and to amplify voices of the underrepresented. I titled my presentation Desnacionalización y Desigualdad, COVID-19 edición, which translates into denationalization and inequality, COVID-19 edition, because that is what summed up the majority of my work this summer. In preparation for this fellowship through my independent study with the amazing Natasha Zaretsky, it was made evident that there are various issues in the Dominican Republic surrounding the treatment of Haitians despite their shared struggles and shared or similar histories. That Dominicans of Haitian descent and Haitians in the DR feel like zombies and ghosts due to hypervisibility in racial profiling, but invisibility in national identity. And those are terms that were coined by Professor Estrella, who works with Reconocido, you'll hear more about later in the DR, as she explains this in her work. I argued that Afro-Latinidad in the Dominican diaspora can offer ways to understand Dominican subjectivity in relation to to erase and perhaps resist the kinds of erasures and ignorance at the root of many human rights issues. Exploring the transnational discourses of race, I seeked to investigate the impact that narratives of race play in culture, resulting in the constant othering of Black people. So this summer, I worked with, sorry, one second. Okay. Just. This summer, as a Gallatin Global Human Rights Fellow, I teleworked with el Centro para la Observación Migratoria y el Desarrollo en el Caribe, o MICA, a think tank focused on advancing migrants' rights and social development in the Caribbean, which advocates for the human rights of migrants and their families as a key to development, democratic consolidation, and inclusive citizenship. OMICA conducts applied research and observed the migratory dynamics in the Hispaniola, the Caribbean, and its diasporas as tools for social change and the elaboration of public policies. They strengthen the capacities of key groups in society that work on the issues of mobility and human development, advocate for public policies that favor the respect for the rights of migrants and their families, and foster dialogue and identification of solutions that are respectful of human rights. The entire fellowship was in Spanish, which I thought I was fluent in until working with them and speaking with these professionals. Now I feel much more confident speaking in Spanish, which I have them to thank for sure. Every week on Tuesdays at 9 in the morning, we met and provided one another with team updates. The team was small. There were 6 of us in total. I would share updates on what I was working on, how New York City was doing amidst COVID, and the protests that I was involved in. It was an especially interesting summer as the DR elected their new president, dealt with COVID and the strict regulations like curfew and the overall health crisis where hospitals were at maximum capacity. I actually was able to visit the DR this summer as well, which later I will show pictures of. The first significant assignment I was a part of was hosting a webinar called Las Diásporas Haitiana y Dominicana en la Mira en EEUU y Chile en la era de COVID-19, or Dominican and Haitian diasporas under COVID-19 in the USA and in Chile. I researched organizations in the United States that work with Dominican and Haitian migrants, and ended up compiling an Excel sheet, which is for OMICA to reference whenever they'd like, with many different organizations in the US that OMICA can reference or collaborate with for future events. Something I struggled with this summer was sitting through webinars after webinars, hearing about the lived experiences of Dominicans and of Haitian descent and their regard as another, and trying to understand this 169-14 law, this law that divided Dominicans of Haitian descent into Group A and Group B, according to whether they were registered or not in the Dominican Civil Registry, giving those of the Group A a kind of administrative naturalization, and those in Group B, those who did not have any type of registration, applied to a special naturalization process in 180 days, within the process of regularization plan of migrants/foreigners, thus turning them into foreigners in their own land. The tensions between Dominicans and Haitians, again, were made very apparent to me through the research that I was involved in. And ultimately, I thought that, they were all seeking the same thing, and that was security in jobs and in living. But how can one do this if they're not even being regarded as a human being? This brings me to the Anuario, which is a book published by OMICA filled with research and data of migration flows in the Caribbean and the diasporas. Lastly, the Instagram that I created, and I'm still building on their behalf to appeal to younger generations, as OMICA tends to be a little bit more research-based. And lastly, here are just some pictures of me and the director, Bridget, at OMICA this summer. I was happy to at least have the chance to visit them. And the way I want to leave this today is just talking about, kind of where my passions still lie. And so questions of identity, treatment toward other races, and migrant rights were and still are at the forefront of my thinking. My intention going in to work with OMICA was to learn about the intricacies between Dominicans and Haitians, investigate the transnationalism of issues like anti-Blackness and racism, understand what could be causing such attitudes and treatments. I left OMICA with a lot more knowledge than what I came with. And though, to be quite honest, through this fellowship, I learned that I am more interested in grassroots collectives than clerical data and work. Though data and research is very important, my passions lie more on the activist side of things. I also came to terms with the fact that I will be going to law school in the future, seeing as it goes a long way in the areas that interest me. Lastly, I learned that the work in the nonprofit sector is never ending. It's hard and often frustrating, but also so rewarding when positive strides are made towards our goals. Still, after this summer, trying to not bite off more than I can chew, and taking mental breaks will be my mantra for the rest of my life. And again, I want to say thank you to everyone who helped me through the process, and a thank you to my fellows who are awesome.